Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another Trek through Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We are on Volume 16, Chapter 9.5. Yes, for those that were not here for last Mushoku Mondays, Andrew took on the massive task that is Chapter 9, which is easily the longest chapter of the entire Mushoku Tensei series, and was, woof, a lot to get through. So yes, last Mushoku Monday, we got through Chapter 8, and we got through part of Chapter 9. I decided at that point the recording was going on for extremely long, so I thought I would cut off at that point, wait until next Mushoku Monday, finish the rest of that chapter, and then we'll jump right into extra chapter, which is honestly so good. Like, I had my problems with Chapter 9 because, again, I don't think that Refugin is very good at mundane, slice of life, and in a lot of cases, wife perspective, and just digging into what we already know about Rudius, them just basically acknowledging what we all see. But even though that was kind of a slog to get through, and I had my issues with Chapter 9, extra chapter is so good. It is so good. I got extremely worked up reading that particular segment, but yeah, I cannot wait to dive into that stuff. But yeah, as per usual, greatly appreciate you guys' support. Thank you guys so much for dropping by for this premiere. Hey chat, hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day after Mushoku Monday. Don't go leaving anywhere now, but we're going to get diving into this. But yes, let's get back into Chapter 9 before traveling to Asura Kingdom. Part 2. Part 2. The next day, Rudius was invited to have dinner with Zenoba and Cliff. It was perfect timing because he needed to discuss something, so he accepted. They met at a restaurant called the Red Sea Eagle. It followed the naming trends of the three magic nations. Place with eagle in its name was typically restaurants. Falcon was bars and pubs. Bat was brothels. Horse was inns. They didn't all follow this. Some would shift services, for example, from a bar to a restaurant. As they were shown to their private room, the one guiding them apologized to Rudius. If they had known that he was coming, they would have offered a better room. Not that he felt the need for them to apologize. They're like, oh, Rudius, you came here. Sorry about that. We would have gotten you a better room if that was the case. Rudius a big shot. They didn't really specify if it was because of Ariel's influence or if it's just in general because Rudius is so popular now. Sitting down at the table, Cliff spoke up. Now then, Rudius, do you know why we came here? Why we specially reserved a room to speak with you? Cliff's brow furrowed. It kind of made Rudius feel that he was angry. Is today your birthday? My birthday has already passed. His reply was dry, unamused by his joke. He was now 20, 21? His baby face made it look like he was 5 years younger. By this world's standards, he'd long reached adulthood, some having 2 to 3 children by his age. We are here for something else. It was probably about Orsted. Rudius swore that he would fill them in on the details once he came back, but he never made good on his promise. He was probably going to give him an earful. Regarding the child Elise and I are having, I have been thinking about calling it Clive if it's a boy, and Clarice if it's a girl. What do you think? That was why they came here? Basically, we'll be going with a mill-style name if it's a boy, and an elf name if it's a girl. What are your thoughts, Rudius? Well, Clive sounds like a name of a clever man, with good odds of making it as a politician. But it also sounds like a name of someone with fussy personality would have. Ella Clarice is a pretty name, and has a nice ring to it. But I also can't help the feeling that she'd have a bad encounter with a thief in the future. One that was still something important from her, like her heart. That's about what I figured he would say. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling, before looking back at Rudius with a tight expression. Actually, that was a joke. We've already decided on the name. While I do appreciate your input, that isn't why I brought here today. It was like one of those things where, like, I'm going to throw a joke at Rudius, and it's like, oh, yeah, that's right. No, that's not why we're here. It was a joke. Like, his joke got thrown back in his face unexpectedly, which is kind of dorky. So, he was pulling his leg. Couldn't have done it with a straighter face. If he was going to go messing around, he needed to smile a bit. Zenoba and Cliff were stiff as statues. Surely you've already guessed what this is about. It's related to your action as of late. Cliff jabbed his finger in his direction. Zenoba nodded in agreement. He also seemed a bit irate.
Master, no matter what you decide to do, I have every intention of following you to the better end. That said, do you not think that you've been a bit too secretive with us lately?
You think so?
Out of nowhere, you asked us to start building an insanely powerful armor for you. Midway through creating it, you began giving us extremely specific advice. You wouldn't even share who you were going up against. And then, we find out that it was one of the 7 great...
He was interrupted by a staff member entering, waiting till they left to continue. Their choice to get a private room must have been due to their fear of Orsted.
We found out that your opponent is one of the 7 great powers, the dragon god Orsted. Not only that, since you went all out in battle, you completely decimated an entire forest.
Nah, it's still there. Well, half of it anyways.
And after all that, you capitulated.
I had no other choice.
For him to bring you to your knees without killing you after you wore that armor and threw everything you had at him. The man must be a monster. It's the only explanation.
In a sense, Orsted was a type of monster, nullifying spells and overpowering him in melee.
Since you don't seem too torn up about it, I assumed the dragon god must be a decent man. But
Zenova paused, shivering as he dropped his gaze. He lifted his head before continuing.
That man is a demon in the flesh. A few days ago, I saw him with my own eyes, and I knew in an instant he was our enemy.
It occurred to Rudius that it didn't seem the curse had affected people unless they actually met Orsted. Zenova was fine until he had their little scrap. Even Aisha and Norn didn't seem repulsed like everyone else did. There goes. There's that kind of semi-confirmation there that yes, Zenova changed the moment that he met him. And again, Aisha and Norn were just chilling there going, why is everybody freaking out about?
I have to assume that you've lost your sanity to serve a man like that.
Personally, I've yet to meet this Orsted myself, so I don't know what Zenova means exactly. But Zenova, Sylphie, and Roxy all seem to consider him dangerous. If they're all on the same page about this, he must be an evil man. It was shocking to hear that from a man who never seemed to listen to what other people were saying. However, Cliff didn't seem affected by the curse yet. Agreeing to work under a man like that doesn't sound like the wise Rudius I know. Rudius in his own mind was like, I'm not that wise. That said, a problem was arising with so many around him disapproving of Orsted. But when you asked us to repair the magic armor, I finally realized you plan to fight him again, don't you? Dragon God Orsted, I mean. Huh? You're only pretending to work under him so you can wait for your opportunity to pounce. That's your strategy, right? No, Orsted and I, Cliff held up his hand. You don't have to say anything to me. The whole reason you asked us to improve the mana efficiency of the armor, because you want to make it accessible to Zenova and me, right? He's going down a weird rabbit hole. In other words, you plan to have us fight with you eventually. He smirked triumphantly. Well, am I wrong? They were absolutely wrong. But it was better to shrug it off and accept that they'd fight with him, and that this was merely a preparation for a battle to come. Eventually, they would see that Orsted wasn't a bad guy. Master Cliff, Reese then paused. It didn't seem right to sugarcoat things and lie to suit his self-interest. Given how close they were, they might not believe the truth, but he'd at least try telling them. This is a cool little moment here. I thought about condensing this a bit, but I do like this because this is a massive thing for Rudius and the idea that these are my friends. Can't lie to them like that. There is a negative here in the idea that, well, you're more than happy to do the same thing for your wives. But it's like at this point, he's literally choosing, I need to tell my friends the truth here, even if they won't accept it. It is technically a good practice here. He's learning that no matter what happens, it kind of just seems to blow up in his face. Like, the one time I try to say the truth, it doesn't work. So what's the point in even telling the truth anymore? What is it? Actually, Orsted has a curse placed on him that makes everyone around him hate him. Would you believe me if I told you that? What? Seriously? An evil god tricked me, which is why I got stuck fighting Orsted in the first place. Would you believe that too? An evil god? You mean the one that you worship with the panties and the bloodstained cloth? Rudius glared. I'll murder you right where you sit if you dare say that again. Huh? Oh, sorry. I guess not that god then. Right. I get what you're saying. Keep going. Reese accidentally let his anger slip. Even so, it wasn't right to deride another person's religion. Roxy was a righteous goddess. Yeah, it was kind of mean, Rudius. That's how I wound up meeting Orsted. For whatever reason, his curse doesn't work on me, so the two of us were able to talk and work things out. In exchange for his forgiveness, I agreed to work alongside him to combat the evil god. Would you believe that as well?
I certainly won't. I am skeptical that a man like that would ever volunteer to fight alongside anyone else.
Surprising to hear someone like Zenova take such a stance. Think about it this way. Zenova is only interested in dolls and figures, yet he strangely insists about his distaste for Orsted. Doesn't that strike you as odd? It has to be the effect of the curse. Well, now that you mention it, no, when I think about it, Zenova does care about you a lot. If Orsted really is untrustworthy, it only makes sense for him to worry. Perhaps that was true. Maybe Zenova really was worried about his well-being. Rudius was grateful that he cared that much. But in this moment, he wished he didn't. Orsted was hiding some things from Rudius, and he wasn't fully trusting of him, but he wasn't foolish enough to bounce between Orsted and the man god and make enemies of both of them. Yeah, you've already switched places once. You go back and it's done. All right, I understand. In that case, we'll go with Cliff's explanation. My explanation? What do you mean? Ahem. It's as you say, Master Cliff. I plan on eventually fighting Orsted. But it's too early to make my move now. I'll have to bide my time and do as he asks. What? Are you sure about that? Then what about the conversation that we just had? Wishful thinking aloud. It'd be nice if it were the truth. Reese thought once Cliff seen Orsted, he'd probably be in the same boat as Zenova. This is technically true. It is kind of funny. He's like, nah, we'll go with what you said. Yeah, I'm fighting him. But wait, you just said... I always hate that, like, no, Rudius, you're being tricked. Okay, I am being tricked. No, but no, you're not being tricked. You just said... What the hell, dude? But yeah, it was better to play along with his theory. With that in mind, I would appreciate your continued cooperation in the future.
I will have your back, Master. In preparation for the battle with Orsted, I will make an armor even Julie can wear.
Great. Looking forward to it. Rudius had no plans of making Julie fight, but knowing that he was motivated was enough. I want to see cute little Julie in a mecha suit. Oh, it's going to happen. With that out of the way, there's something else I would like to ask you. He turned to Cliff. He had to twist his plans about curing Orsted in a way that kind of fit this mindset. This is kind of clever, and honestly, this is a very clever way of doing this. Orsted is actually protected by a barrier. A barrier? Like a magical one? No, more like a curse. The curse makes it so that if you gaze upon Orsted, you will automatically pull back. Too intimidating to fight with full strength. Really? He has a curse like that? Yes. The whole reason I lost to him, I assume it must be the same for you, Zenoba.
It just seemed as though I was defeated out of nowhere. I couldn't understand what happened. Now that you mentioned it, I got the sense that my body wasn't moving like it normally does.
Rudius thought, yeah, that was probably your imagination. But he kept it to himself. I see. Well, a curse like that would be bothersome indeed. Yes, extremely bothersome. And for that very reason, I would like you to see if you could do something about his curse. But all my research is centered around Elise. I have no idea how it would work on Orsted. Well, if it doesn't, then we'll have to counter another way. You can't work on your research with Elise's curse while she's pregnant, right? So I'd like you to test to see how much you can weaken the effects of other curses in the meantime. Apparently, this was kind of cool, Cliff was trying to become a specialist in curses. While he hadn't completely suppressed Elise's, he significantly reduced its potency. Rudius hoped that he could weaken Orsted's curse, so he wouldn't strike fear into anyone that looked upon him. Or, at least, as much as he did now. But are you sure that Orsted would agree to participate in such research? How are you going to trick him into it? Orsted's like a wolf, starving for prey. He hungers for battle. In reality, he's displeased by the effects of the curse as well. Really? But it's thanks to his curse that he's got the advantages over his opponent, right? He said it himself. For once, he'd like to face an opponent and fight at full power without them cowering before him. Again, probably read this from a light novel or something like that. I've heard this one before, like this whole idea of like, I want a true opponent. Rudius would have to ask Orsted to play along with his farce. You mean it? Yep, that's why I need to dive headfirst into researching him. No holds bar. All right. I don't like deceiving people, but if you're sure about this, I'll give it a shot. Master Cliff was the best ever. Miss Elise would have to give him a good lovin'. I need to go over there and tell her. She's gonna do it anyways. With the curse out of the way, he could slowly start taking Sylphie and the others to his side. Victory would be his if he found a way to deal with Orsted's curse. This is where I was like starting to think about how like, gosh dang it just feels like everybody is turning on Rudius. Like everybody that was once his friends is now looking at him either by, it's all concern really. It's mostly concern. That's a good thing. The idea that they fear for him, they think something's going on, they think that he's being manipulated in some way. But it's still one of those aspects that, yeah, now it's starting to bring up question marks around it. Like the whole thing with the teleportation circles, it's like, oh, I don't think it's necessarily them going, Rudius did it. It could be an idea of Rudius did it under his orders, but they know that they think that the person behind him is doing it. And it's kind of sad because I kind of agree with him here. And as he's talking about here, like still the guilt felt like no laughing matter. He was having to lie to everyone around him. It wasn't no moral issue, but everyone was seriously worried about him. Lying felt like he was betraying them. There was a hope that they could all laugh it off later once the curse was lifted. Yeah, he's creating that tension. That's really what it is. It's creating tension. It's like, I kind of wish I can get rid of this. Because even with this, I liked this whole segment. I was thinking about condensing this, but I like that aspect of them, again, saying what's wrong, tell us, and then him going, well, here's the truth. And they go, no, that can't be the truth. Okay, well, I'll feed into your lie. It sucks. It really does suck. Well, that's that then. I look forward to your continued assistance, Zenoba, Master Cliff.
Yes, I'm relieved that you had some sort of plan up your sleeve, Master.
It's no small task that you've given me, but I'll take care of it. Following this, they all had an exquisite meal and drinks. Cliff gave a toast to friendships. The bros, it's the bros. It seems sentimental, but he knew that neither Zenoba or Cliff would ever betray him when it came down to it. The feature diary made that clear. Cliff risked his entire country turning on him. Zenoba stuck with him, even when he became a real piece of shit. Truly irreplaceable friends. Rudius lied to them today, but come what may, he wanted to be there for them. So what if they were being too sentimental? In between his life in Japan and here, he lived long enough to be a mushy old fart anyways. Technically true. Cliff spoke up. But, speaking of male friendship, what kind of things do men talk about in times like this? Cliff looked puzzled. Raunchy, sexy stuff? Sexy stuff? Ah, come to think of it, I heard you have a new wife now. Rudius grinned. Yep. Her name's Edis. She was actually a childhood friend.
Lady Edis? Now, that name brings back memories. I wondered how the woman, once referred to as the Mad Dog, had turned out. I shall be sure to pay my respects soon.
Zenoba and Edis hadn't spoke much when they were in Chiron, but he still remembered her nonetheless. She was so intense that it was hard to forget her. Wait a minute. Now that I think about it, Master Cliff, didn't you say you knew Edis before, right? Didn't you say something about meeting her a long time ago? We had a brief interaction a long time ago. I don't feel anything for her now. He's like, no, I got Eloise now. I'm good. I'm good. I got Eloise now. I don't need her no more. It was so funny because that was like a massive crush moment. Like that whole segment was like this massive crush that Cliff had. At like this had to be the one. I have to get rid of this other guy. Who is this other guy? I need her. She's the perfect one for me. And yes, he had that mindset back then that he was perfect. Why wouldn't anybody want me? He's changed so much. So they had a small encounter. Odds were that she completely forgot that he existed. Pretty much. The more important matter here is you, Rudius. I told you this before, but women aren't collectibles. Cliff launched into a long, drawn-out sermon. You can't just bring a bunch of them home and let them wait on you hand and foot. Once drunk, Zenoba was the one to launch in a sexy talk. He talked about his wife he had married years before, but it turned into a horror story. Yeah. Before transitioning into a series of complaints about how she couldn't understand his dolls. Rudius and Cliff joined in, talking about Edis and Eloise. Both were monsters in bed, so they could both sympathize with each other. Yeah, Rudius is like, yeah, I've never had a top, and I've always been the top, and now I'm a bottom. How does that work? He's like, yeah, I know how you feel. She's always a top for me too. Sadly, Zenoba grew quickly bored of the conversation, so they talked about the magic armor instead. Relaying information about his fight with Orsted, the two of them listened with eyes alight with fascination. Rudius mentioned Orsted restoring his arm, and how he's missing the strength of his prosthetic arm. I never really thought about that before. Like, when I was reading this, I'm like, wait, so he got it the way that it was worded when I was reading it, my mind was going to this idea that, is he talking about because he restored his arm, his new arm is weaker? But no, he's talking about the fact that he just misses having this prosthetic that he can infuse with mana and make it super strong. Again, basically his arm, when he lost his arm, he had the prosthetic in there, and the prosthetic was essentially an arm with a battle aura, in a sense. And so, yes, now that he has his real arm back, it's great. He's like, yeah, I can touch things now. He can't put mana into it, make it stronger. It's one of those fascinating things. It's like he got a taste of a battle aura. It's the same with a full suit armor. It's a taste of that battle aura. With that, they immediately went back to Cliff's place with drinks to build a new one. They struggled with making a new prosthetic hand, mainly because they were all drunk. None of them had enough sense to make the right calls. In the end, though, drinking with the boys and bantering while trying to make something was insanely fun. He gets to experience hanging out with the boys. Yeah, I kind of mentioned it earlier in this whole segment. He was talking about how, like, every time he goes out, they always bring, like, somebody with them. Like, Cliff will bring Eloise, or one of the girls will come with Rudius or something like that. This is the one time it's like just the boys. Elsewhere, Sylphie, Edis, and Roxy were set atop a large bed in the Grey Rat estate, having the 26th scheduled Grey Rat house meeting. Edis was puzzled as she was dragged into the meeting from her training without explanation. In Sylphie's stead, Roxy cleared up everything to Edis, explaining what the meeting's purpose was. These meetings are something that Sylphie came up with as a way for us to bond. We each have our own expectations and feelings of jealousy and possessiveness. But if we succumb to that and compete amongst ourselves, it will only hurt Rudy. As a member of this household, our duty is to do all that we can to make it a safe haven for him. If there's anything you want to say to us, please do it here. Let's try not to do any bickering in front of Rudy, especially since he's so busy of late. We like to keep from adding to his burdens as much as we can. Edis nodded solemnly, agreeing. There was no fighting inside the house or causing trouble for Rudius. Edis was born in the Ostra Kingdom. While Philip only took one wife, many houses had multiple wives. It's so funny reading that now because of what's happened, what is mentioned in the extra chapter. Philip only had one wife. I guess it's a concubine or something, but yeah, whatever. It was common in high-ranking noble houses that were eager to produce many offspring. They wanted to reduce the risk of their line dying out. Even Edis's beloved grandfather took many partners. Sados even told her once, "You can tell the caliber of a nobleman by how well his many wives get along with each other." That's an interesting little note there. It's one of those moments where when you read something like that, it's like, dang, I kind of wish that we had that way back here to give that context, because yes, that was that whole period of time, purposely probably, that I was curious how Edis was going to handle the idea of Rudius having multiple wives. And at the time I was like, well, she was surrounded by that. In Osirus, she was surrounded by this whole idea. And yes, I guess technically right here, it's where it's kind of solidifying that idea of no. Right here, it's literally saying, me, Edis, if I want to be the wife of Rudius, I got to get along with these two, because that'll make him look good. What is Eris always worried about? How other people see Rudius. If you say that Rudius is a good person, you're a good person in her eyes. So it's something to help him. I mean, they all have that feeling in this room, obviously, because that's why they're having this meeting, but it solidifies her perspective. The better they got along, the more positive it will reflect on Rudius. With that out of the way, they moved on the topic at hand, getting to know Eris better and deepening their friendships. They talked about how they first met Rudius, Eris getting the first time, Sylvie being the first to marry him. Only one without a first was Roxy. But there was a jealousy in how he admired her so much. But Roxy didn't know what she taught Rudius that was so special. It seems Sylvie also struggled with how Eris was able to fight as his equal and not having to be protected. While Eris achieved the strength she sought for at the Sword Sanctum and could now stand as his equal, she couldn't help but be envious of the relationship that Rudius and Sylvie had. After Lilia interrupted with snacks, she and Zenith were pulled in by Sylvie to join them. Eris struggled with formalities directed at Lilia at this time, mainly because she didn't feel it right to treat Lilia like the maids they treated at her old estate. Lilia's daughter was Rudius' younger sister, which made Lilia more like a wet nurse or a second mother. The last thing that she wanted to do was make Rudius' mother hate her. I like that already. Again, this is one of those kind of ongoing issues with Lilia, is not, being a part of the family or whatever. But yeah, this is one of those moments where it's like already the moment Eris goes into the door, she's like immediately, this is technically a mom to Rudius. I need to treat her with respect. It seems like most of the stuff inside of Eris's mind right now is just literally don't cause problems. And it's so funny to think about that, because again, that was like her. I think it's those things like that connected to her. Like when the entire time they were traveling across the world, she was a problem for Rudius, even though she didn't want to. That whole chapter in Volume 6 was literally her saying, stop being a problem for him or he's going to leave you behind. And I think it just is so burnt in her brain. Don't cause problems. Don't make him hate you. Don't make him hate you. While Lilia had heard rumors of Eris back in Buena Village, she'd seen Eris had grown into a stunning young lady, one the sword god and the lord of the Toa region would be proud of. Lilia was then baited into telling stories about Rudius in the younger years. While she was repulsed by him at the time, she can't remember why. This is so cool. When I read this segment, I was actually like, really? He was always a pervert. But now all her memories of those days were happy ones. It's like literally everything that she of course, I think that was something that kind of was developing over time after he essentially saved her life. This idea that she always had so much respect for him that I think she pretty much created her own rose-tinted glasses and had so much respect for him and desired so much good for him that over time, eventually, all she could think about was positive. Annalise would eventually arrive, finding everyone but Roxy and Eris drunk. Yeah, it was like mentioning the idea that Eris is just like swigging them and nothing's happened. She's more gorging food than anything. Oh, dear me. Seems you girls are up to some fun. Ah, Grandma, Sylvie beamed. Your tummy has gotten big. Is my little brother in there? Oh, will I get a little sister? Oh, wait, if Cliff is basically my father, then that makes Rudy, I'm assuming this is because she's drunk, because I'm like, what? Okay, so that's your grandma. And she has a child, and you're thinking it's gonna be a brother when no, that would be an uncle. she's got an uncle in her belly, but then she's like, oh wait, but if Cliff is basically my father, no, he would be a grandfather. That makes Rudy. It's almost like she's equating Annalise as being her mother right now because she's so drunk. Like where this girl just way too many, just swigged way too many. She's in another world. She's in some alternate world where grandma meets mother and Cliff is her father. And I don't know what the whole thing with that makes Rudy my what? There's no connection to Rudy. Why are you bringing up Rudy? Wow. Anyways, moving on. Annalise tried to join in the drinking, but Sylvie forbade it. Nearby, Roxy was refilling Lilia's drinks, and she spoke up. Miss Roxy, why is it that my daughter can't earn Lord Bruce's love as well? He does love her. I wonder if that's really true. Well, admittedly, he does only see her as a younger sister. But doesn't a woman's true happiness come from being loved by a man? Well, I definitely am happy, but I don't think that's the only form of happiness that one can have. Besides, Aisha's a talented girl. I'm sure she'll find a wonderful partner eventually. Lilia shot up straighter. Someone better than Lord Brutus? Well, it is difficult to find a man that better than Rudy. When you put it like that, I hit it really big, didn't I? Like buying up a prime spot of land for pocket change before everyone realizes its true value and the price shoots up. This is so sad. It's like that aspect of like, I guess this is kind of like our first sign of like Lilia getting a little bit frustrated by the fact that Rudius isn't accepting Aisha's love. And yes, that idea that she truly does kind of want Rudius to take Aisha in as a loved one. And it's like, yeah, I guess I see that. She's always been that way. She said that she was going to basically build Aisha to serve him. But now it seems like it's transitioning that idea that, like, take him, give him love. She wants Aisha to experience the same love that she got from Paul, probably. It's just that she wants him to be in a relationship. She knows that Aisha is probably going to always be with Rudius. They'll never look anywhere else. And if she doesn't have that return of love, Lilia's probably at this point fearing that Aisha is never going to be happy. She's never going to marry Rudius. She's never going to be happy. She's going to be miserable. Watching them, Elise remembered how single girls from Adventure Guild would throw parties. They'd lament not being able to snag a good man, get merry, get told off by the bartender, sent off into the streets after closing hours, where they would nod off until morning. Elise was eager to join them. She had no lack of male partners. The only reason that she would join is to enjoy alcohol with the group. I was like, when I was reading this, I'm like, was it going to get like some serious thing? Like, you know, getting the idea that she used to help out a lot of these girls find men and support them and everything. But no, she's like, I just want to drink. Just want to drink with the girls. Just lamenting, drinking with the girls. The four women drank themselves into oblivion as they let out their built-up negative feelings. Their anxiety around Rudius doing secretive things, suspicion about the man god and Orsted, yet they were all optimistic about how it would work out. It was a whirlwind of emotions, and they knocked back drinks and enjoyed themselves. Roxy and Elise, who remained sober, were kind enough to humor their many complaints. It was they that cast detoxification magic on the others. When all was done, Elise returned home, and Roxy retreated to her room, the latter preparing for school the next day, before slipping in the bed. There was one girl in the household who couldn't join the party, and sulkily slept the night away. Immediately know who this was, but Roxy wouldn't realize they left her out until the following morning. Poor Aisha. Poor Aisha. This was the segment that I was talking about that I had probably my biggest complaints is, again, it's so much just them acknowledging everything we've read Rudius do. So it's just literally saying, we've seen it, and I'm reading through it, and I'm going, shrug. Like, again, I kind of find Refugian to be very lacking when it comes to female character perspectives. I mean, to be honest, it was also with Edis's perspective way back in Volume 6. It's always with these perspectives. But every now and then they do something with it. Like, at least with Volume 6's perspective with Edis, it was all about her own fears, the thing that she was afraid of, what she was doing with her family, what her family's expectations was of her, everything boring down upon her. It was about Edis. It was about her. And yes, and eventually it comes in that driving force of wanting to seek out Rudius. Roxy's perspective when she went home, it was all about her. So I know Refugian can do it, but it just feels like lately they're not. Or I guess it's more of the fact that whenever I do get these perspectives from the female characters, I get excited. And then when it does nothing but talk about Rudius, I'm going, well, that was a waste. Like, that was a waste. It's very unfortunate. Rudius book clinging to Zenobia. It should go without saying, but he didn't swing that way. He had gotten completely smashed the previous night. He never drank with the boys in his previous life, but now he's seen that it made it taste better. His head was pounding, so he did detoxification magic on himself. He did the same for Zenobia and Cliff, even if they were still sleeping. Zenobia's foot was resting on Cliff's face, which was probably why he was having a bad dream. Rudius apologized that he can't fix the source of the stench with his healing and detoxification. It doesn't fix stinky feet. As he tried to cure dehydration with water, he noticed an arm-shaped object sitting in the middle of the room. It looked like it had metal plates layering it together. He racked his brain trying to figure out what happened the night before. He didn't even recognize his surroundings, but he figured it was Cliff's room. He then recalled them making a new prosthetic hand. Cliff said the materials were here to draw the magic circles. Everything else was murky. Picking it up, he inspected it. It was probably 10 kilograms, made with his earth magic. It had a perfect slot in the palm for a magic stone. It struggled to fit it on my hand while holding it. I'm not even going to look it up again. I need to, because I need to point out for 7Cs to show that it's true. It struggled to fit it on my hand. It was apparently struggling to fit on his hand. It struggled to fit. It struggled to fit it on my hand. Damn it, 7Cs. I struggled to fit it on my hand while holding it, so I set it down and slipped my hand in. Earth, be thou my hand. Mana started pulling in his arm and fed into the gauntlet, causing it to become lighter. His sense of touch was less sensitive, but he could pick up whatever he needed. It gave him fond nostalgia of his time that he spent with his prosthetic. No mistaking, this was Zelef prosthesis, or the Zelef gauntlet. They had finished it. After that, they all groggily sat around enjoying breakfast that was made by Loveless. They lacked energy to celebrate, but decided to make a new blueprint later. After parting ways, Ruius' feet dragged as he headed home. The summer heat was inescapable. Snow would soon be gone, and beast folk would be entering mating season. Roxy's belly began to swell. He was looking forward to deciding a name, but in 2 weeks, he would have to leave for the Osra Kingdom. He could return with teleportation magic, but he had no idea how many months he would be there. He hated the idea of not being there for the birth. She'd be spending 9 months with uncomfortable pregnancy symptoms, all so that she can give birth to his child. This is one of those things where he did this with Sylphie too, where like every time he talks about the child and everything, he always talks about it like it's his. And it's so interesting to have here later on how Roxy literally says, no, it's partly mine. I don't think Sylphie ever said that. I don't think Sylphie ever... But again, I think most of that stuff was in his head. The way that he talked was always in his head. I don't think that she ever retorted it, though, because I don't remember if he ever spoke it. But I think he did. But it's so weird how he talks like that. I think it's mostly in the idea that he always believes that it's for him. And I think there's a part of it with Sylphie, like especially for the pregnancy thing, was because Sylphie was doing it because she knew that he wanted it. Like, he wants this. He wants this so bad. And so I don't think that she would argue with him by saying it that way. I guess it's so different with Roxy and the idea that she wants it, like, so badly now. Not arguing that Sylphie doesn't want it now. Like, she loves and adores Lucy. But I think at the time of the pregnancy, it was so much of, like, Ruius wants this. I have to give this to him. Roxy wants this. It's a very interesting dynamic there. Difference there, I guess. There was little he could do in return, but he needed to show how grateful he was through his actions. Would it be a boy or girl? Since Lucy was a girl, he kind of wanted a boy this time. Edis mentioned that she wanted a boy. Back in Japan, there was tips and tricks to determining the sex of your baby, like doing some things or another in order to make it be one or the other. But he couldn't remember what it was. Baby magic could change the sex of the baby. Still, either way, he would lovingly raise it. Because you're doing well with... I like how, like, literally, like a few pages before, he's talking about how he can never be there for Lucy, and here he's like, I can't wait to raise this new child. You're doing really good at that. I think he's doing well enough. I think he's doing well enough, even though he's now leaving for several months again. Edis would be pregnant in no time. The concern was if she can settle down long enough to behave while pregnant. That's true. Like, can she chill? Is she not going to is she going to, like, sit there and be outside swinging her sword with the belly out? The other issue is that it seemed like she was in a rush, constantly stopping mid-intimacy in order to ask if they were doing it right. Part of it was because she had a naturally high libido, but partly because she was a step behind the other girls. In Osra Kingdom, there was a strong sense that one could not declare themselves a man's wife until they had their child. Yeah, that's a sad thing, because even Sylphie had that too, didn't she? I think Sylphie had the same mindset, that she had to have his child in order for him, like she wasn't going to be his wife. Well, he had no idea what she thought about that. If the child made her feel more secure, he'd oblige. Reaching home, he knew they'd be upset that he stayed out all night without saying anything. They had no strict curfew, but it might be wise to make one since kidnapping was a problem. There was no telling what the man god might do. Lucy was growing up, so making a rule now would protect her and the future children. I'm home, he declared. Oh, big brother, welcome home. Aisha, where's everyone? Did they all go out? They were up late in the night. They're still asleep. Ruius felt bad, being left out of the fun. But the boys were the boys and the girls were the girls. They hoped that they didn't badmouth him. No, they were talking all about you the entire time, about how great you are and how they want to sleep with you. The opposite, Rudius. That's why I got so much trouble getting through it. Can you believe them? They were cold to me. While I was sleeping, they got together and had drinks and chat. Oh, so you weren't part of the festivities? Nope. Leo and I slept together the whole night. Speaking of Leo, when I woke up this morning, I noticed the bed felt wet and cold. Leo apparently had an accident. I got onto him, and he looked all dejected. He may look like a big dog, but he's a little pup. So what do? Did you wash the bedding? Of course I did. Oh, and Miss Edis helped me. She promised she wouldn't tell anybody because she used to wet the bed as well. I told her it wasn't me, but she wouldn't believe me, no matter what I said. Please tell the truth. I swear. I have never once wet the bed since I was born. I didn't know that. You sure about that? You two. You guys are cruel. Any Aisha conversation is always great. I love Aisha. While he was anxious about Edis drinking, it was nice to know that Edis was getting along with the other girls. Oh, Rudius, welcome home. Edis came down the stairs wearing light clothing and a wooden sword. Her real sword is still at her hip. Good to be home. Going out for training now? Yep. I have to train even harder. Well, not sure what they discussed. It seemed like she was in high spirits. That reminded him. Yeah, it's like she's ready to go train. She's got to train harder because she got to... It was kind of them kind of buttering her up in the idea that she was the strong one. She was sitting there as they were talking about what they got from Rudius, and how they met him and all this other stuff. And there's like this jealousy kind of being, I guess, sussed out. Like they're getting that jealousy out of their system. And during that whole time, she's learning that they all admire her because she's the strong one. So go out there and start swinging the sword. This is where I'm strong at. That reminded him, Edis, what? If you're going to go do some training, how about have some mock battles with me? You know, like we used to do? We haven't done in a long time. She gave a vacant stare at first, but then recovered with a grin. She's like, yes. It's like a wait, what? Yeah, hell yeah. Sounds good. I'll pound you in the ground like I used to. It sounded good, but what is going to be okay? A Sword King can hold back, right? He couldn't look pathetic in front of her. He had to put his game face on. The two of them stood apart, facing each other, out in the garden. It's been a really long time since I've sparred with you like this. Sure has. It's been 5 years since they traveled with Berserd. I won't lose to you anymore. Don't worry, I don't have any illusions that I'm going to win. He defeated her after receiving the Eye of Foresight, but by the end of their journey, the advantage was negligible. After parting, they lived their separate lives. Edis studying the sword and fighting. After seeing her face off against Orsted, he could tell he didn't stand a chance beating her. That said, you don't have much experience fighting a mage, do you? Nope, and I've never faced anyone with a skill enough to use something called a Sword of Light. Mock battles like this will help me prepare for facing off against opponents with similar skill. Edis huffed, grinning from ear to ear. He didn't really compliment her that much. He wondered if if he said something funny. Starting the fight, she lifted her sword above her head, her favorite pose since childhood. However, this one was different. The moment she took that pose, the air around her settled. The tense, cocky aura about her disappeared in an instant. Panicked, Rudius dropped to a fighting stance, gripping his staff and unleashing his Eye of Foresight. Before he could get the word out, Edis's figure blurred. A force struck his right shoulder. He dropped his staff before he could register what happened and went sprawling. The next thing he knew, he was staring up at the sky. There was a delay before pain shot through his shoulder. He couldn't move his right arm at all. She may have shattered his shoulder blade. He cast healing magic. The pain subsided. Edis appeared in his field of vision, still holding her sword up, with a confused look on her face, as if to ask if she could strike him again. It's like, can I go again? You want another one? Do we keep going? Hold it, stop, I give. He thrust his hand up to stay her, and she lowered her weapon. Edis, was that the Sword of Light just now? Yep. So it was a secret technique of the Sword God style. He had seen it before, and Orsted even hit him with it. But seeing it once again reinforced how ungodly fast it was. He had no time to blink, let alone react. It's not one of those things that kind of keeps compounding on itself in this story is how, like, yes, technically Rudius being out there at that village and, like, dropping a literal nuke down, which is completely unique to him in a lot of regards. Now, granted, we haven't really established that nobody else can do that if they had his knowledge and he could explain it to them, but still, even with how much he has figured out how to manipulate magic to do some incredible stuff, it always keeps emphasizing the idea of how massively OP swordsmanship is. Mainly a lot to do with the fact of battle auras, really. After that, they had 10 more matches. He only won one of them. He knew Edis was strong, but he was no match for her. The point of the matches was to get stronger. Experiencing the best of the Sword God style was valuable. Still, he felt utterly dejected after having snot knocked out of him over and over again. Trying everything, Quagmire, Deep Mist, Earth Fortress, Vacuum Wave, Sonic Boom. He even tried to use wind and sand to obscure her vision. Cornering her was her weakness, but her Sword of Light was so fast it could overcome that. She even managed to push through electricity, still gripping her sword and charging at him. Damn! She didn't lack guts for sure. Like he's electrocuting her and she's like, grr. I really am a loser, aren't I? He sighed. Why do you think that? I mean, look at you. You worked hard and became this powerful as a result. Well, this is all my efforts amount to. I feel like I can't even look you in the eyes, especially with how many hours you put in to train as compared to me. The only time he managed to win a match was when he managed to stop her blade with Zaelith Gauntlet. Edis was thrown off by the abnormal resistance that she felt through his sleeve. She assumed that she would break his arm, but instead it deflected. Without thinking, she blurted, "What? So you can make your arm hard too?" The sexual implication made her cheeks flush. In the end, it was luck that he won, not strength or tactics. Plus, a real sword would have chopped his arm off. That meant that win didn't count. Meaning, he was a big loser. That's not true at all. We're talking about sword plays versus magic here. In melee, it's only natural that you lose. That wasn't the reaction that he was expecting. He figured that she'd rub it in before yelling at him to train, or be disgusted and say that he bored her. Did the word melee just come out of her mouth? We started within my range of attack, so you're at a disadvantage from the beginning. In fact, I should be the one that should be ashamed that you won even once. She said that with a complete earnest look on her face. Was this really his Edis? He had to remind himself that she was a Sword King now. Of course, she had knowledge in combat. It would be odd if she didn't. She had spoken the same way when she was teaching Norn swordsmanship too. He knew that, yet couldn't stop from asking. Edis, I have one question. What? Who taught you all this? Abra was the one who taught me about melee. Wait, The North Emperor? North Emperor Auber? That's the one. From what I understand, you were a sword god apprentice, but you're saying that you learned from North Emperor? And a bit from a water god too. He thought, Rada as well. Edis, to tell you the truth, there's a good chance that we might have to face those two when we go to Astra. Really? Yeah. They're on our enemy side. He thought that it'd be difficult for her to face her former teachers, so he worded it in a way that was diplomatic. However, she just crossed her arms and grinned like she was ready to walk into battle. Yeah? That got me itching to fight. She's like, do it. Let's do it. I mean, I think that was kind of the way that they were. It seemed like they were in the Sword Sanctum. It's like you never know where you're going to go and when you're going to become enemies. So I can see that being something they can kind of prepare themselves for. She apparently hadn't built the same kind of relationship with them as she did with Ghislaine. In fact, he wondered if she even made friends at the Sword Sanctum. That worried him. Well, if you're raring to go, then I won't hold back from fighting them either. Of course, you better not hold back from them because you think it would be disrespectful? Because they'll cut you in two in an instant. But don't worry about that. You have me to protect you. Right. It wasn't reassuring to find out that, yes, they can cut me in half. That seemed kind of terrifying. He didn't want to face them head on. Maybe lure them into a trap and rig some conditions in his favor. Yeah, they're the type that you're not going to want to just come in there all willy-nilly. Well, thank you for doing the mock battles with me, regardless. No need to thank me. As your wife, it's my duty. Well then, as your husband, I better work hard so I can stand toe-to-toe with you. You're fine as you are. You sure? Yeah, everyone has their role to play. In fact, if I know you have my back in battle, it'll put me at ease. It's so sweet. I like this because, yes, I like how internally Rudius is struggling right here. He feels like a weakling. I am a loser. He knew, and it's so funny because he came into this knowing that she was going to beat his face in. He's like, I seen her fight Orsted. And when it comes to the point where he's like feeling like, I knew this, but God, I look bad. What if she's going to think I'm a weakling? Again, she technically trained at the Sword Sanctum to become his equal. And now she's like super powerful compared to him. He feels less than her. And it's not so much that he's thinking like, I need to be better than her. It's more of the fact that I don't want her to be disillusioned by me. I don't want her to think that I'm a weakling and then get mad and upset and leave disgusted. I can see you having that fear there, especially as a man. You have that fear there of being weaker. And that the society builds that idea that you have to be stronger than the female. And right here, it's so great how Edis just goes, yeah, of course. I mean, we're close to each other. Of course you're going to lose. And they're still learning something from this, and she's explaining something to him. Now, she's not very skilled in mages, and we're going to find out here in a minute. Roxy's going to be the one that's going to step up to give him the information for mages. But from a perspective of her as a swordswoman, she's explaining it to him and saying, it's fine. I'm going to protect you. This is my role. She's dedicated to this role that she is the protector. She has figured out very quickly in talking with Sylphie and Roxy and everybody else, this is my role. Don't be ashamed. I will protect you. I'll keep them from hurting you. I love it. She's the husband. She's got the pants and she's gonna protect her wife. Edis of 5 years ago would have never said something like this. The skills that she had picked up certainly were the most notable things, but she had matured mentally as well. He had to work hard so that she wouldn't feel disillusioned. Again, he still says it though. I hate that he still says it though. He continued sparring with Edis as he prepared for the departure. He made improvements to the magic armor, packed for the trip. He had several meetings with Orsted in order to discuss the abilities North Emperor Auber and Water God Rada might use, as well as how to counter them. Additionally, they worked out how to contact the band of thieves Triss was involved with. Just to be on the safe side, Ruiz would brush up on geographical knowledge of Astra Kingdom, Ars, as well as the layout of the Silver Palace, where the royals resided. Ruiz also introduced Cliff to Orsted, so that he can study Ors's curse. Any spare time he spent with Roxy, lording around, sneaking into her peripheral vision to get her attention. But most of the time, he was pretty direct about asking for her time, perhaps because she was pregnant. She was more willing than usual to accept his company. Not that she ever refused before, but she was making a more concerted effort to approach him, which warmed his heart. She had always been aloof with him. If he was sitting on the couch, she would opt for one of the armchairs or take a seat across from him, rather than sit at his side. That changed as of late. She would either cozy up with him or plop on his lap. This is the same Roxy that hated to be treated like a kid, but yet she was willingly perching on his legs. Her cheeks would light up with embarrassment doing it, no doubt taking more courage than just simply sitting at his side. She knows that he likes it. She knows that he likes it. That's why he made sure to offer prayers of gratitude at the altar every night. My goddess, thank you for letting me have such a happy life. One evening, they sat together in the living room, chatting, and never running out of things to talk about. Roxy discussed things about school, or news about the latest magical implements. Sometimes they would talk about the adventures after the displacement incident. None of the subjects were terribly important, but chatting always put him at ease. Hearing her voice alone was enough to make him happy. Roxy's words always carried a deep nuance, wisdom, and enlightenment. It was never a dull moment with her. You're becoming too insecure. While a mage should have their distance while attacking, that means a greater delay before their attacks hit. But when I'm fighting someone with a sword, shouldn't I put some distance between myself and them? Well, normally people criticize the idea of talking about another woman. Roxy broached the subject. She watched their match, and him getting his butt handed to him. True, if you're a mage facing a swordsman, the more distance you get, the better position you'll be in. Your spell's impact may be delayed, but at least your opponent's attack won't hit you either. See? Like I was saying. However, that all changes the moment that you enter the opponent's attack range. Once you're within their reach, they have the complete upper hand. After all, they're fast. Trying to put distance between yourself and them is futile. You won't be able to move fast enough to get out of the range. They're going to come straight at you if you try that. And their attacks are a cone-like shape that moves outward, meaning you're likely to get hit by them the further you are away. He experienced that numerous times in battle with Edis. She charged as she attacked, but she also often kept him barely in range. From that position, she could counter any magic he tried. If he tried to fall back, she'd chase after him. He lost almost 30 times before realizing what she was doing. Allow me to quiz you. When you're up against an opponent whose area of attack is in front of them, where's the most disadvantaged position to be in the field? Behind the enemy? Precisely. They're going to lunge forward and attack you, so their center is off balance, and it's going to be tilted forward. Even if they try to defend their rear with an attack, its power will be severely reduced. If you can withstand that, you have the chance to counter them. Thus, the key is to slip out of the attack range and flank them. That's an interesting way. And again, this is kind of one of those things, again, going to what I was talking about earlier and how much they emphasize how OP and advantage the swordsmanship is to magicians. Besides when you're like in an insane range and you could just drop a massive thing down on them. Like she was mentioning the idea of like, yeah, if you cast a spell from way far away, you have that delay. Yes, you shoot at earth like a stone cannon and they can move out of the way. Now, granted, I think he can probably build it up so much that it's so fast, like with the fight with Orsid, it's like a bullet. How can he dodge that? But again, with battle ores and stuff, they're moving at lightning speed. So it might make sense that they can actually see it and move fast enough that they can get away from it. But yes, technically he could drop a massive nuke. It takes out Edis. But it's interesting to kind of see how, and it makes sense if they're going to be fighting North God and this water god, he's going to need to learn how to somehow counter a swords fighter. And so I think this is what this is. It's sort of kind of, yeah, he knew this is coming, so he's trying to prepare for it, and that's why he's training with Edis. But it's like, yeah, this kind of seems like it's flagging it. Like, at some point, we're going to have Rudy's fighting somebody. He's got to figure out that whole tilting and flanking kind of thing, which makes sense. It is a conal type of shaped thing if they're swiping like this, but it's still very interesting. So it was better to charge forward instead of falling back. The most dangerous move was actually the best path to survival. Roxy's brilliance didn't surprise him. She wasn't his teacher for nothing. As an adventurer, she probably had her fair share of such situations. She'd probably taken down a number of powerful, demon-like beasts at close range. Calling her a god was no exaggeration. His eyes sparkled as he stared at his wife. She awkwardly averted her eyes. Ahem. Well, I'm sure it'll be difficult with Edis as your opponent. I certainly couldn't do it, so please, don't ask me to demonstrate it for you. No. I am certain that anyone could do it. You could. No, I really couldn't. So stop looking at me like you think that I'm some sort of invincible superhuman. Nope. He was looking at her like she was a goddess. Still, he had his answer. Rather than falling back, he charged forward, at least occasionally, get the drop on them, and halt their momentum with a counter. That would force them into second-guessing themselves and doubt their usual method of charging in for the kill. This would at least give him the advantage, making his opponent think that it was a risk to close in too much distance between them. He'd then fall back and gain the upper hand. Granted, it wouldn't be that simple with Edis. He'd just have to keep losing while cautiously testing options. Roxy cleared her throat, interrupting his thoughts. Well, Rudy, since your departure is fast approaching, I think it's about time that you decide a name for the baby. Isn't thinking up a baby's name before going off an adventure like some sort of ill omen? That's a superstition born of a human hero story, right? That's nothing to do with the Midgard tribe. It was still an ill omen, but if his goddess said that it was nothing to worry about, he would do the goddess bidding. In our village, it's the tribe leader's job to pick the name, and you're the leader of this household, right? So hurry up and make a decision. Are you sure you want me to make a choice all my own? Of course. While you're gone, I'll be lovingly stroking the belly, calling our baby whatever name you give it. That will bring me some happiness in your absence. She caressed her stomach. He cupped his hand over hers and followed the motions. It was strange thinking about how this little girl, he's known for over a decade, held his baby within her. He'd experienced the same puzzling sensation before with Sylphie, and now again with Roxy. Happiness swelled in the depths of his chest. It was pleasant, and he wanted to enjoy it again and again. Yeah, something that I think before, with the first time with Sylphie, it's like he couldn't even think of how to describe it. And it feels like it seems like he's getting a better idea of it as time goes on. He snickered. What is it, Rudy? That laugh sounds just like Sylphie. Nothing really. Thinking about how much I like your tummy. I'm not as slender as Sylphie, nor as fit and muscular as Edis. But if you still like my body, then you're welcome to touch it as much as you want. Really? Half the baby inside me belongs to you after all. What about you? How much of you belong to me? Everything, at least on the outside, but I can't claim the baby inside too. Half the baby belongs to me. I won't budge on that. Again, that's that kind of interesting difference there. Like, she literally is saying, this is mine. Half of this is mine. And again, I find that to be kind of interesting how different that is for him to kind of experience. And again, kind of goes against to what he kind of talks about. Again, he's always thinking like, she's doing this for me. She's doing this and I'm burdening him. Basically, he feels like he's burdening his wives. He did it with Sylphie. I'm having her carry this, and thus he feels bad about it. And with this situation, he's being basically told, half of it's mine. I'm doing this because half of it is mine. This is my child too. It made sense. He knew she was wise. The child belonged to both its parents, and Roxy to him. He's like, so it still belongs to me. Let's see, what should we do about the name? Well, a Magurdian name would be something like Lola. The Magurdians liked the name that start with Ro and Lo, but since their child was half Magurdian, there was no reason to stick that tradition. At first, he thought about combining Rudius and Roxy, but they only came up with Rodius and Luxy. After a while, Rudius figured it out. If it's a boy, we'll call him Loro, and if it's a girl, we'll call him Lara. How's that? A fine idea. Loro and Lara. I like the sound of those names. Of course. He ripped them straight out of the Adventures of Lolo, after all. Dude, I loved Adventure of Lolo. Dude, I played that so freaking much. That game was amazing. But I don't think Lara was a part of it until the third one. But the first one, yeah, was Lolo. It was so good. It was such a great game. Doesn't that make you happy, Loro? Or Lara? Your father was kind enough to decide a name for you. Despite the appearance of a middle schooler, Roxy's expression, as she cooed at her stomach, was like that of the Holy Mother, utterly divine, which means their baby was the goddess's child. Rudy, Roxy said, interrupting his thoughts. Yes? I know I acted like how I wasn't worried a few days ago, but I expect you to come home safe and sound, okay? I want the both of us to be able to hold this child together. Yes, ma'am. She didn't have to tell him twice. Of course. Those indulgent days passed quickly, and it was time to depart for the kingdom. There was 8 in their party. Ariel's group, Luke, Sylphie, Elamoy, and Cleone. Then there was Edis, Ghislaine, and Rudius. They had a single carriage, which required 2 of the 5 horses to pull it. Ariel's trappings were modest for a princess of a country as great as Asra. To the outside world, it looked like they were gearing to sneak into the country. In reality, they were planning on accessing a forbidden teleportation circle to teleport themselves in. Despite the secretive nature of their mission, there was a crowd to see them off. The group in the vicinity, vice principal, officers of the student council, general managers of Magicians Guild, leader of the magical implement workshop, a handful of heads of organizations, and representatives for nobility and royalty from the 3 magic nations. They all swooped in one after another to bid Ariel farewell. They didn't seem to understand the definition of covert. I don't think she probably told them that. Regardless, their presence was proof of Ariel's efforts for connections bore fruit. True. The fact that they're there is the more impressive thing. He may have a day that he needed to make use of those connections himself. Orsted was insanely powerful, but he didn't have very good relations with others. He was on his own for that front. He decided to mingle with the others and pay respects to them. And with that, they set off to the Astra Kingdom. And that is chapter 9. Such a long chapter. It's nuts. Oof. Jeez. Extra chapter, The Black Wolf, Sword King. This chapter was so good. It's been so long since we had a Ghislaine chapter focused on her. It's technically like Ghislaine and the party and everything, but I love this chapter. It actually confirms something that I had suspicions about for a long time. So I love, again, another one of those moments where I kind of seen something here, and then way later, it's like, oh yeah, don't worry, I didn't forget about that. Ghislaine de Dolia's morning began before the sun came up. Changing into her clothes, drinking water, basic stretches, leaving the inn. After an hour walking around the city, she spotted a group of adventurers returning to the city at the entrance. They were a large group, over 20, most likely a famous clan. Behind them, a brawny horse pulled a wagon housing an enormous bovine creature. The beast was likely a sudden mutation that appeared on the outskirts of the city. This famous clan had accepted the quest to take care of it. Faces heavy with exhaustion, it was likely a mission that took several days to complete. Ghislaine watched them for a while, before losing interest. Okay, whatever. After her walk, she returned to the inn to practice her sword, swinging it over and over. She had done the same monotonous daily routine without fail for over a decade. Sword god Galfalion had ordered her to do this ages ago. She did it while she was at the Sword Sanctum, as an adventurer. After Saros took her in, she did it after she was teleported to the conflict zone, as well as when she made it to the refugee camp. She continued doing it even after she reunited with Edis, and when she returned to the Summer Sanctum. Even now, as Ariel's bodyguard, she never skipped a session. So she did end up being Ariel's bodyguard. Again, I was kind of curious. But again, technically, Edis said that she was supposed to go there to go Ghislaine, whatever. This training gave her a sense of physical condition and mental state each day. Lately, her mind had been at peace. She had 2 objectives to fulfill, protecting Edis and avenging Saros. 1 completed, 1 remaining. Ghislaine liked it like that. Having one goal was straightforward, easy to understand, and she didn't have to strain herself over it. Even better, her path was already laid out. Rudius introduced her to Ariel, who understood what she wanted to accomplish. She also promised to let Ghislaine do just that. Finally, everything was simple. All she had to do, when the time came, is charge forth and cut the enemy down. That simplicity was why she felt relaxed today. That night, Ghislaine visited one of Shariah's many pubs. Clamor filled the air, yet it was conspicuously quiet around her immediate vicinity. Despite her being past her prime, Ghislaine was still a beauty, a beast woman with tan skin and impressive musculature. Yet, no one approached her due to her dangerous aura that reminded people of the Berserker Sword King, who was the subject of endless rumors. The Berserker Sword King, a person who swung their fists indiscriminately and cut people down. A person who lacked all reason and never thought twice before unleashing their fury. Just meeting their gaze could provoke them into a fight. They were an amazing swords fighter. On top of all of that, the mystery surrounding them stoked more fear, which is why everyone gave Ghislaine a wide berth. Edis isn't that bad. Edis isn't that bad. Again, it's that aura just creating rumors. In truth, Ghislaine was the teacher of this rumored Berserker Sword King, not the woman herself. She sat alone, keeping to herself, quieter than any other customer as she nursed her drink. That made people more intimidated and added weight to the rumors. She wasn't intentionally trying to be menacing. She was only waiting for her food to come. She knew that this place had procured the meat from the beast that she had spotted before. Thus, they would be serving up thick slices of juicy meat. That's why she glued her eyes to the kitchen, where the scent of sizzling meat wafted out from. Just then, Annalise entered. Beautiful face, gorgeous hair, and generous breasts. Her stomach was swollen, which looked bizarre on an otherwise slender figure, a clear sign that she was pregnant. Immediately, she caught the attention of everybody inside. Hey, it's been a while. Not looking for any male partners anymore? Come to think of it, you got hitched, didn't you? Come grab a seat. Let's knock back some drinks together. She masterfully rebuffed invitations before heading to where everyone else was avoiding. Hey, you Ghislaine. Sorry to keep you waiting, Annalise said as she turned to the beast woman. You're late. Well, I can't help that. After all, I'm... Wait, Ghislaine's sharp voice rang out, cutting Annalise off mid-sentence. Shocked, Annalise froze. The proprietor appeared from the kitchen and slammed down a large plate with a steak on it. Take your time and join the meal. Oh, I'd like some waters and snacks myself. Sure thing. I'm completely exhausted. I've been through pregnancy countless times, but it never gets any easier. But I wonder why it is. I haven't grown to dislike it after going through it so many times. Speaking of which, your mating season should be soon, right? Isn't it about time that you find yourself a partner? If you'd like, I'd be able to pair you up with somebody. Ghislaine never so much glanced at Annalise, simply waiting with her knife and fork in hand, staring down at the meat. There's no need to wait on my account. Go ahead and eat. You sure? Of course. It won't be any good when it's cold. Meat's always good, even when it's cold. She tore into it, putting her in heaven. The entire time, Annalise watched with her cheek resting on her hand. Is it good? In that case, I was right to pick this place. Annalise was the one that clued her in on the stakes here. Since they had the fortune of reuniting after so long, she invited Ghislaine out to dinner. Naturally, she picked the exact pub Ghislaine loved. After Annalise's order arrived, Ghislaine was half done. How unusual for you not to drink. Yes, alcohol would be a better fit for our happy reunion and the depressing conversation we're about to have, but alas, I can't partake. Annalise lightly tapped her swollen stomach. Okay then. Recently, I actually tried to have some alcohol myself, but Sylphie stopped me, treating me like a child, telling me it was a no-no. Annalise wore a vacant expression as she caressed her stomach. Ghislaine frowned and replied, Heard you got married, but I never figured that you would devote yourself to one guy. It's a surprise to me too, but Cliff is a wonderful man. Sure, he's not very flexible and doesn't listen, but he's so self-confident and has a strong sense of responsibility. When we have sex, he goes all out. He doesn't simply focus on his own pleasure. He tries his best to make sure I feel good too. He's so utterly adorable. Oh, Ghislaine, you should try to find someone for yourself soon. I'll pass. Ghislaine brushed off the romance talk without a second thought. She'd already given up on living as a woman, instead focusing on leading a life as a swords fighter. That was technically something they actually got into at the Sword Sanctum quite a bit too, especially with Nina. So it's kind of interesting to kind of see that this is something that Ghislaine has chosen, which honestly is not shocking to me. I never really seen any signs of Ghislaine really caring about relationships or trying to find somebody, so it makes sense. What sucks is here in a minute, technically implying something, and it hurt. It hurt. Well, I won't force you. More importantly, Ellelace raised her cup, and Ghislaine hers as well, to a fond reunion between friends. Yeah, cheers. The two former members of the Black Wolf Fangs finally came together again. It just so sucks that she wasn't there with them when they were all in Begaret, all kind of reunited as well. It would have been better if Talhan and Geese were here to join us. Paul and Zenith too. Suddenly, a joyous meeting turned gloomy. But that was why Ellelace had came here. About Paul. It's a shame what happened. In a better world, I would have been the first to go, not him. He lived fast and reckless. I figured he'd meet his end sooner rather than later. Yeah, I seem to remember you saying something about that a long time ago. Ghislaine shook her head. You're the one that said it. Oh, really? Yep, but the fact that he's gone isn't surprising to me. Paul went out with a bang, though. Care to hear the story? Yeah, tell me. Ellelace recounted the story. Paul separating from his family, searching for them, turning away from his womanizing ways to remain loyal to Zenith, reuniting with Rudia and Begaret, how the two of them talked, how happy Paul looked. And finally, how Paul died protecting Rudius. It's kind of out of nowhere. This didn't affect me that much when I was reading it before. Huh, Ghislaine grunted. He sure has changed. Hard to believe that he's the same man who always did stupid crap with you. Oh, I seem to remember you being the biggest idiot of them all. As I recall, you used to wag your tail every time you looked at Paul for a while there. I was delusional. Must have been mating season. Besides, I'm not an Adultia. My tail doesn't wag whenever I'm happy. It was a figure of speech. But you really were adorable back then. Always fussing over Paul at every turn. That was a long time ago. Forget about it. This so sucks. This so sucks. It's not a transition I really want to see. It's not a transition that I was really wanting to see. Gave up ever being a woman. Never finding anybody. Oh, by the way, you used to wag your tail at him all the time. No, I didn't. Yeah, but you're really happy back then. You're always after him. It kind of made it out like... I think for the longest time, it always made it out like Paul was just taking advantage of how stupid Ghislaine was or whatever. Like, he would just sneak in there and get her whenever she was in mating season or just attacking her in general. And how she had the ring and it was to fight off the vicious wolf or whatever. This is all kind of pointing out that she liked him. Like, Ghislaine liked him. And, I mean, it sucks because it really does make it out like Ghislaine obviously isn't the brightest person in the world. Actively not really trying to learn much stuff and only recently really kind of trying to learn things and expand her mind quite a bit more than just her own strength. But it is... This whole chapter kind of is laying out this idea of Ghislaine having liked Paul. And it is kind of a part of it that kind of makes me wonder if there was a part of Ellelace's frustration with Paul because he sort of messed with them all and then ran off with Zenith. Which again has always been that kind of question mark surrounding that party. What happened to that party? Obviously, yes, we had the apology and everything with Paul back in Begaret, and we kind of figured that was all kind of this long overblown thing that started from here and just snowballed into this desire to nobody wanting to say sorry. But still, it sucks. Poor Ghislaine. Poor Ghislaine. I hope Ghislaine finds somebody before the end of the series. Ellelace sniggered as she popped a cut of meat in her mouth. Ghislaine, watching, decided to order the same thing. Like, she's still halfway through her thing, and she's like, oh, I want to get some of that too. Here, you can have this. Let's order something else instead and split between us. She passed over her plate to her friend. The two feasted, letting the sound of munching fill the air between them for a while. Zenith's condition was a bigger shock to me than Paul's death. Yeah, never dreamed I'd see her in a state like that. Indeed, Ghislaine didn't respond. That's just how it goes, I guess. We adventurers. The fact that she's even alive is a cause for celebration. Besides, Reese is looking for a way to heal her. Who knows, maybe she'll return to normal eventually. Yeah? Well, she may be an old woman by the time that day comes. Ghislaine chuckled. When that happens, Hopefully we can have drinks together again. I hope so. We'll have to call in Geese and Talhand when that day comes and have a huge party. What are those two up to anyways? The two of them caught up on different topics. How Annalise met Rudius, past adventurers. A time they all dived into some old ruins to find a legendary holy sword. Then there was a time that Geese gambled all their money away, and they had to shake down people for funds. There was a time that Ghislaine entered her mating season, and Paul jumped in to take advantage. And then Annalise joined in, turning it into a sensual threesome. Most of their memories together were embarrassing, but they were precious. Embedded deep within the two women's hearts. Dang it, this stupid chapter. I don't know why this is doing to me so bad. Anything with Paul kicks my butt. Annalise's eyes were half crinkled shut as she jabbered away. Ghislaine guzzled so much alcohol that she was smashed, her face vacant as she rested her chin on her hand. Oh dear, I really get to see you drunk into oblivion like this. Can you get back to your room on your own? I'm fine. There's no wolves who would bother coming after me. Shigen looked back. Adventurers quickly averted their eyes. Maybe I should... Here it is. Maybe I should have taken up Lord Philip on his offer after all. I want to say there was some sort of hint at this. Again, it's technically become a mistress, not a wife. So that comment I made earlier, yes, technically it's just a mistress, but still, very interesting. Philip? Oh, you mean the one from the Fatoa region? Yeah, he asked me to come as mistress once. Oh dear, you missed a prime opportunity there. You could have been set for life if you agreed to that. Ghislaine smiled sadly. I couldn't have faced Edis if I had agreed. I'm shocked to hear you say such a thing. Ghislaine's eyes were fixed on the wall, burning with fury. Lord Philip is already dead. He didn't survive the displacement incident. I gave him a proper burial and claimed the heads of the ones who killed him. Finally, after what, was that at the end of volume 2 that they had Goddess Lane chapter, or was that 3? Literally, somewhere around 13 volumes later, something well, technically we didn't get the confirmation until volume 6 is when Ghislaine said they died in the displacement incident. They were in the conflict zone. She confirmed their bodies. But it said specifically, like, something was horrible about the bodies, and she didn't want to say anything. And even then, it was confirming it there. There was a hint there. Like, again, the Refugian is insane. There was a hint. Ghislaine was saddened by something about their bodies. Rudius seen something in Ghislaine's face. Knew that there was something about that she didn't want to talk about it. I think even then it was hinting at the idea that there was a love for Philip and Hilda. Like, she cared for this family. And there may have been an aspect there about Philip himself. But again, I thought about back when they had the chapter for Goddess Lane. There was this aspect that she was going around killing the leaders. Yes, there's the idea that she was coming straight down south. And the idea was the two encampments are right there. And she was going to plow right through all of them. I'm going south. They said I have to go south. She looks at the sky. That's south. Anything that gets in my way gets cut down. So yeah, she's going to just bulldoze through. But no, for some reason, she goes and claims the head of the two leaders. It clicked for me way back there. You know what? I bet she was killing them because they were responsible for the death of Philip and Hilda. She was claiming their heads, the two leaders, because at some point when she was going through those encampments, she probably discovered the bodies of Hilda and Philip, and she went crazy and killed both the leaders. You're responsible, and took out the leaders. And I think even in that chapter, in the Goddess Lane chapter, it specifically says that she severed the head from their shoulders. She claimed the head of the ones responsible. It was their leaders. That's why she killed them. It wasn't simply because they were in her way and she just happened to go by where the king was at and bulldoze them down. She was after, like, it was a target. So again, it's like one of those things of like, holy crap, they're literally confirming what I was speculating way back there. Like, way back there I was speculating this, and it's finally confirmed. I love it. I love this stuff. But it's still tragic. But it's still at the same time super tragic. Oof. Oh my, I didn't realize it. That's a shame. Lady Edis is married to Rudius now. Ghislaine lifted her head, a murderous glint in her eyes as she stared up the ceiling. All that's left is to avenge Lord Saros. She exuded such a menacing aura that several patrons decided to flee. The bartender's like, oh god, she's ruining all my business. But Annalise wasn't shaken. She knew Ghislaine was capable of turning vicious on a fly and cutting someone down. But she knew that she wouldn't be the Beast Woman's target. That's not, again, this is, again, the whole thing that I loved a lot about the Goddess Lane, Forest Goddess Lane chapter there, was seeing this girl in a feral state, like bloodthirsty feral state. Annalise right here is like, I've seen that. I've seen her in that state, but she knows she isn't going to cut me down. I've seen her in that state and she never cut me down. I know that my friend wouldn't cut me down, so that's why he became Her Highness's bodyguard. Yep. Annalise sighed and followed Ghislaine's gaze to the ceiling. You sure have changed. You didn't used to be such a fiercely loyal knight. I'm a member of the Dodio tribe, that's why. Ghislaine stood, her gait so confident that it was hard to believe that she was sloshed. Where are you going? Home. Oh dear, you're as hasty as ever. Annalise shrugged, left coin on the counter, and rushed after her. Ghislaine was already disappearing down the street as Annalise called out her name. Ghislaine paused, ears twitching as she looked over her shoulder. While you're in the Astra Kingdom, be sure to protect Rudius and Sylphie. Those two are my adorable grandchildren, you know. Yeah, will do. Ghislaine's tail perked as she answered. Doesn't respond to emotion, right? I love it. With that, Annalise turned the opposite direction to return to her home where Cliff waited. Ghislaine stared after her, grunting, her list of things to do suddenly increasing. On the other hand, it wasn't something she had to do. Protecting those two was something she planned to do anyways. I've gotten wiser, she realized, pleased with herself. She was in high spirits as she headed to her end. Oh, that's such a good chapter. After chapter 9, that is such a freaking good chapter. Holy crap, dude. I loved that little bit. Again, everything around Ghislaine, her giving up on ever being a woman, her possible love of Paul, giving up on that, possibly being with Philip, the fury that she had over Philip's death, the fury that she has right now of Saros. Again, if you remember, when Ghislaine, when the party broke apart, and she was wandering around barely surviving. She was not smart, and she was being swindled by other groups. It was hard to have groups, and she was near death, and then Saros took them in. Saros and Philip took her in, and she loved that family. Like, there's a strong indication that Ghislaine loved that family, and she lost it. And again, I think after the displacement incident, she found, well, it's confirmed, she found Hilda and Philip. She lost it. These people killed my family. And she killed them. Like, she destroyed both those groups. That's why she destroyed them. And that's why that group won. She literally destroyed that group. Both of those kingdoms. And then she's running back, and she gets back home, and she's reunited with Edis. And she continues that desire. But then she finds out Saros is dead too. They killed Saros. Another one of my family members. The guy who took me in. The guy who gave me a shelter. Gave me a place to stay. Fed me. I need to kill them. But I need to take care of Edis first. This is priority one. She's here right in front of me. Take care of this first. She's in a good place now. Now I need revenge. And now they're all going together, and it's like, all right, I gotta take care of them again. I'm no doubt, no question. Take care of those two. Already happening. There's so much in this chapter. It's so freaking good. I love it. And of course, the other segment of this is super good is just Annalise and Ghislaine, the two girls of the old part. Well, it was Zenith too, just coming together, talking about Zenith as well, which is still going to be a heartbreak for all of them. Is rough too. It's like so much rough in here. I like how it kind of starts that idea of like Annalise is here to celebrate, but then it quickly turns gloomy. They try to kind of get it back into positive, talking about, you know, all this other stuff. And then it goes right back into that sadness that kind of comes with all of this stuff that the two of them need to talk about after all these years. So yeah. Anyways, there you go. That's it. That is volume 16. I didn't mention before, but yes, I did technically check the remaining images. I loved I love this little shot. Oh, I don't have the auto on there. Hold on a second. There, right there. But yeah, I love this shot. She loves that dog so much. She's like, let's go running. And yeah, for some reason it shows Sylphie seeing Luke being a little creeper. So I guess apparently she's seen her looking at us at some point. So there's that whole thing. And then yes, everybody was wondering why I didn't see this image when the summoning happened. But yeah, I looked at it as well. The chibi forms of all of them over there. Super funny. Super funny. What's in the back? I don't think I checked the back images. I don't know. I don't think there was any back images when I was looking at the... No. But gosh, that Ellis and Ghislaine picture. Oof. Oof. But yeah, that's another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. But yeah, that's volume 16. But yeah, thanks you guys so much for joining me for volume 16. Easily, I think this is gonna probably be right there. I don't remember what my tier list was. I wanted to say that I was pretty low on volume 10, I believe it was. But this will probably end up going down as one of the weakest volumes of the series so far, which, like I said before, doesn't say much because these volumes are amazing in the comparison to the rest of them. Besides, like, the very beginning of I'm looking for the stupid tier list. Let me look for the tier list before I can continue talking. In the C category was volume 7, volume 8, and volume 10. So yeah, 10 was for sure one of them. But yeah, along with probably alongside 7, 8, and 9, or 7, 8, and 10 in C category, I'd probably put this volume. Again, I really, really loved the beginning segments, but towards the later part kind of start to get really repetitive with the back and forth and the setup coming up. And again, I acknowledge fully that there is going to be a lot of setup for what's to come. Yeah, it wasn't the strongest of all the volumes, and that's a little bit let down, but again, it's still up there because Mushoku Tensei is amazing. So I'm hopefully looking forward to 17 being a really strong volume, but we'll see. But that said, I thank you guys so much for joining me for the end of volume 16. I hope you guys will join me for 17 as we go into that. Definitely appreciate your guys' support, all your kind words, all the support you guys give through monetarily, through Patreon, tips, links, memberships, super thanks, all that stuff. I greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate it. It means so much to me, guys. We'll part with your hard-earned money in order to support keeping this going. Additionally, if you've not already, make sure to hit that like button. You bad chatters that aren't hitting the like button yet. I always love that we get all these hundreds of viewers on the premiere and no likes. It breaks my heart, you babakas. But no, even I guess if you don't like it, the Mushoku video, that's fine. Just don't hit dislike. That makes me sad. But anyways, I greatly appreciate you guys' support, no matter how you guys support the channel. But until the next Mushoku Mondays, as we go into volume 17, y'all take care. Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another Trek the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We're on volume 16. My brain is already getting to 17. I'm ready to jump into the next volume. It gave him a fond nostalgia of his time with his prosthetic. It gave him fond nostalgia of the time that he spent with his prosthetic. It gave him but decided to make a clean blueprint later. Blueprint later, especially with how many hours of training you put in to compare me.